What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about healing in BFA and how that's going to pertain to you if you're new, especially if you're new, and if you're a seasoned raider who maybe wants to get more serious about World of Warcraft and playing the game and playing your class and playing your role to the best of its ability. Today we're going to be talking about healing. Alright, the first thing you need to know about being a healer is that being a healer is almost like a separate job onto itself, because more so than any other class or any other role in the game, you're going to be doing as a healer, you're going to be making sure that you are working together with your team. And I mean your team as in like your healing team. The healing core is probably the most important part of this entire group composition. And if you guys aren't working together on a extremely tight wavelength, knowing exactly when to pop your cooldowns, exactly when to heal certain people, exactly when to do certain things, a lot of the times you'll see that for the most part you'll have a healer who shoots up a lot, maybe towards the beginning. If your group's all evenly skilled, you'll have a healer that shoots up pretty high towards the beginning, probably pushing out a bunch of CDs, doing a bunch of healing, maybe overhealing quite a bit, and overcompensating for the rest of the team, so the other healers on the team are being overshadowed by this one person who's maybe sniping the heals overall. And that person is making it harder for everyone else to succeed because they aren't working together with your team. And this is where I come to my first point on healing, in that if you're a healer, you have to work together. You can't just do what other roles do in World of Warcraft. Like, if I'm a DPS, for the most part, what my role is to DPS to the DPS and to do the job of a raid. Like, go and soak stuff, go and avoid things, do other mechanics, but also be like top damage compared to my other people who are playing me. Same thing when I'm tanking. When I'm tanking, my goal is to keep the raid safe, do what I'm supposed to do, move the boss fast, get to positions I need to get to, but also I am pretty much focusing on being a better tank than my off tank. When it comes to healing, though, this is the reason why I'm not as into healing anymore as I used to be, is because there isn't really competition between healers. You can say there is, but realistically, what you're trying to do with your healing team is work together. It doesn't really matter what your healing per second is. It matters that you're working together with your healers. And if you're not communicating with the other healers on your team, you're not going to perform well, your group's going to suffer. And if you're showboating and doing crazy heals for a couple seconds but then being about halfway through the fight, then you're not helping your team at all. You're being a hindrance. You're not assessing what the true issues are. Maybe in a more casual setting that's okay, but when you're trying to be really serious, you're trying to work through that process of becoming a better player, it's really hard to just take advantage of a bad situation by healing it yourself and being Superman. There's a lot of faith that comes into healing. There's a lot of faith that comes into healing, and you have to depend on your other healers. And if you don't depend on your other healers, you're going to fail. You know, much like maining a tank, healers have to know a lot about their class, know a lot about the situation that they're in, know a lot about what the other classes are doing in order for them to do their job properly. Like many supports in other games, like Overwatch and like League of Legends, you as a support player have more of a role than just healing the target, dispelling the debuff. You also have your little knickknacks and fun things that make the game easier for the rest of the people, like using life grip to make sure that someone on Mythic Argus gets to the group fast if they have a fear debuff. And fear debuff means that if you're away from the group with the fear debuff, you take a stacking dot, but if you're in the group, you're fine. So in that situation, like a priest healer would do amazingly well if they know how to play and know how to use their life grip appropriately. Then that is a really good example of what you need to do as a healer in order to succeed beyond just healing. And a lot of classes have that, and like shamans have a speed totem, druids have high mobility, and that's something that they can use to their advantage whenever they have issues in a fight or to getting to someone to help them soak a debuff, etc. These things help the entire group succeed. And if these people were performing well and supporting their team, which is what they're trying to do, is support their team, then the healing aspect of being a healer comes natural, and the group, hopefully, if you're situated and assigned properly to that job, will succeed better than they did if you were working separately and not as a cohesive team. If you do decide to join a team, I suggest calling out your cooldowns, like on a rampant basis. Even if it's annoying, it's important to let the other healers know that, hey, I am popping a trank right now. Hey, I am popping a healing tide right now. You probably don't want to pop your cooldown, because the worst thing that could possibly happen in a raid is a really bad attack happens, hits the entire group, knocks us all down low, and then every healer panic hits their biggest cooldown, and then suddenly we don't have one because no one communicated what was going on. And, you know, ideally you want to have an officer tell you when and when not to use those cooldowns, but as a independent human being, you need to make sure that you are actively checking and balancing yourself in order to make it easier for your team, because maybe your team isn't the best. Maybe they need that little bit of insight. Maybe they need you to step up a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to pop my cooldown here. This is what's going to happen. We probably should start staggering CDs. That might seem a little bold, but that's something that you might need to do to make sure your team succeeds, because that's the most important part at the end of the day, is making sure that your team succeeds because you are a support role player. When it comes to 5-mans, the entire aspect of healing kind of flips over and the upside down. And what I mean by that is holding your cooldowns and saving your mana essentially in a 5-man environment isn't as big a deal as it would be in a raid environment. In a raid environment, it's very important for you to be cautious, calm, collective, discuss things with your other healers, pop your cooldowns appropriately, accurately heal people, make sure the tanks are topped off, make sure you're topped off, and work around the entire raid like that. In a 5-man environment, it's much more important that you just blow your cooldowns whenever you feel like you need to pop your cooldowns, preemptively or as actively as possible. I mean, you could pop some of your biggest AoE cooldowns on trash just to make sure you get your mana back for the next pull that you know is going to be rough, if that's something that you feel comfortable doing. I know that often when I play my shaman, I find myself, oh, we got a big pool coming up, I'm just gonna pop my ability now and get a bunch of mana and then use my mana as a cooldown, because your mana is a CD. As much as people may not believe that, your mana as it stands is a cooldown for you. It is also a resource, it is an ability, and you can use your mana as a cooldown when you're in a rough situation. If you have a lot of mana excess, you can spam really big heals really fast and deplete that mana source as a cooldown and heal your team up full and not have to worry about it as much. And the fact that you can heal and drink between pulls is the most amazing thing. So another thing I would suggest is always bring lots of water with you when you go to anything you do. And between pulls, always drink immediately, and then when you see targets start to dip, you stop drinking, you go and heal them, and then you do the same thing again. You repeat this over and over again, and I promise you, one of the most important rules for me when I heal in a Mythic Plus environment is that I want to make sure that I am never being waited for. Because the thing that I hate the most when tanking is having to wait for the healer who's like, I need mana, you need to give me a second to drink, blah blah blah. I always tell any tank that I'm with when I'm healing right now in Mythic Pluses, do not wait for me. No matter what, just pull as much as you want, pretend that I don't exist, because it is my job as a healer to make sure I get that mana back between pulls. Unless your tank is pulling everything in the dungeon, which some tanks do, that's the only time you need to say anything. But for the most part, most tanks are like, I'm gonna pull 5 guys, kill them. I have a few seconds between to start drinking, at least start drinking before he pulls something else. And as long as you've started drinking, you're good. Because you're going to get a good amount of mana back in like a few seconds, which is all you really need to make sure you perform well in that Mythic Plus environment. Besides all that, I'm going to use this section for both the ranged DPS guide and for the healer guide. And that is, I guess what I call it is smart casting. And what it is your connection between yourself and the game is always, it doesn't matter how good your MS is. For the most part, there is always a slight delay in whatever you do. So when you're casting abilities, and this is one of the things I want to make sure I get out there, is that when you're casting abilities, you make sure that at the very end of your cast, there is a small section where you can move and your cast will still go off. Because what happens is that the client in game recognizes that your cast has gone off before the cast has actually gone off. And if you start moving before it's gone off, at that little bitty section at the end, you'll actually get the cast to go off and you'll be already one step ahead, moving from whatever you need to move from. Maybe there's AoE on the floor, maybe there's AoE coming, maybe there is something you need to get to really quickly, but you can still get that cast off if you play it right. I'm not saying that you should do that all the time. It's usually not wise to finish a cast. It's better to just live. But if you get good at that, you can make use of your maximum casts. Make sure that that tank gets that needed heal that he needs. And if you work really hard at doing that and understand how that works, you'll be fine. A good add-on to get for that is Quartz. Quartz is something I've been using for years now. It shows your latency by a little bitty section at the end of the cast that is like lighter than the rest, and that really indicates what your latency is in relativeness to what you're casting. And I highly suggest that you get that add-on. Other than that, guys, I'm a tried and true guy. I don't use any really good healing add-ons. I don't use HealBot. I'm very much so a click and press guy. I click the person and then I press the spell to go at it. But if you want to use like things like HealBot, go for it. I know healers that do. I know a lot of healers that do and say, they swear by it. And if that's something that you want to do, then do it. But I'm not the kind of person. I'm very old school, I guess, in that way. And I'm still a pretty good healer when it comes down to it. Alright, guys. I hope you liked the video. I hope you enjoyed what I talked about today. This video took a bit to do because I had to go through a bunch of healers on the BFA Alpha. Right now, or not, the BFA Beta. And I hope you guys enjoyed the content that I put forth. If you didn't, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about the healing class or things we want to talk about, I can get some good discussions in the comment section below. The discussion last week was amazing. I really enjoyed talking about paladins and talking about tanking and just how that aspect works between the raid dynamic and how people feel about their class specifically. That was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed that discussion. So please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys again next week, and have a nice day.